Ferguson has revealed that she's on the cusp of a nervous breakdown as her daughters are being dragged into the scandal over her association with Jeffrey Epstein.
You're about to learn how the comeback Duchess ran out of comebacks and why this time there may be no way back. In the next few minutes, you'll see the emails that shattered a carefully rebuilt image, the chain reaction that pulled Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie into a scandal they never asked for, the real atmosphere inside Royal Lodge as boxes stack and futures shrink, and the brutal pattern, money, reinvention, scandal, apology, that finally collapsed under its own weight.
Of course, this situation has affected Sarah Ferguson. She's been forced to relinquish her titles. I think it's quite unfortunate, that we have to discuss people's mental health in all of this, because it will no doubt take a huge effect.
By the end, you'll know exactly how a woman who monetized resilience for decades lost the one currency she couldn't live without: public forgiveness. Let's start where the silence gets loudest. Friends say Sarah Ferguson is pacing hallways that used to feel like a fortress. The calls have stopped. The calendar is empty. And for the first time in a lifetime spent in front of cameras, she doesn't want to be seen. The former Duchess of York, forever Fergie to the tabloids, has hit a wall even her famous optimism can't climb. Because this time, the fallout isn't just hitting her. It's touching her daughters. And that, insiders say, is what's breaking her. How did we get here? The storm didn't arrive in a single headline. It rolled in, wave after wave. Years of living under the same roof as Prince Andrew at Royal Lodge, a curious arrangement that worked as long as the institution around them worked, suddenly looks like a gilded trap. Andrew's stripped of titles and honors. Reports that he's agreed to leave the 30-room lodge that had become the last symbol of their shared defiance. Inside, corridors lined with boxes and unopened packages become more than clutter. They become a metaphor. A life on pause. A family holding its breath. Then came the leak that turned whispers into a roar. Emails from years ago, in which Sarah reportedly apologized to Jeffrey Epstein and described him in terms that detonated whatever goodwill still existed. For a public that had given her more second chances than anyone thought possible, it felt like a final straw. Charities stepped back. Broadcasters stopped returning calls. A children's book delayed. A new TV series dragged into a controversy it didn't create. When even friendly doors close, you learn who kept them open. This is the point where Fergie used to do her magic. Reinvent, reframe, return. She'd pivot into a new lane: wellness, children's causes, a warm-hearted interview, a self-deprecating story, and the audience, almost against its will, would soften. It worked because it felt human. She was messy, funny, approachable, the opposite of icy. But reinvention isn't infinite. It's a credit line. And every scandal is a swipe. After decades of spending on that card, lavish habits, impulsive choices, headline-grabbing stumbles, the lender finally said no. To understand why sympathy is running on fumes, you have to look at the pattern. Biographers documented the spending sprees, the holidays, the staff lists that felt like a private hotel. Debt piled up. Then came the endorsements, the talk shows, the paid speeches. She turned mea culpas into business models, and for a long time, audiences went along. Because she had something rare in royal orbit, a sense of humor about herself. That charm bought her time. It did not erase the bill. Inside the palace, the patience curve bent earlier. Courtiers have long described her as unmanageable, a kind word for someone who doesn't read the room until the room reads her. Even so, the late queen reportedly had a soft spot. She saw the loyalty to Andrew, the devotion to the girls, the willingness to show up for family moments unglamorous and untelevised. That quiet approval was a shield. When the queen left, the shield left with her. And now, with Andrew withdrawn and increasingly isolated, Royal Lodge feels less like a home and more like a museum to what used to be. Friends say the atmosphere is heavy. The beloved corgis are staying with the family, but even their future is a question of addresses and logistics. It's the kind of small detail that carries big symbolism. A house that once signaled permanence now signals uncertainty. Professional lifelines are fraying too. Publishers balk at the risk. Television partners distance themselves from drama they can't control. A new PR team can manage headlines, but not history. Because the problem isn't a single bad story. It's the story arc. Reinvention only works when the audience believes you've learned. When they don't, every new chapter reads like a PR tactic, not a personal change. So the options shrink. Leave the UK and start again somewhere sunlit and forgiving. Rebrand around causes that matter but require credibility the public is no longer offering. Or do the hardest thing. Stop running and face the wreckage head-on. Not with a glossy memoir or a tearful two-parter, but with accountability that costs something. Accountability that doesn't have a ticket price. There is, underneath the noise, a human being in real pain. People close to her talk about sleepless nights, skipped meals, endless scrolling, an addiction to headlines that only make the spiral tighter. This is the vicious loop of public life. You need attention to survive, you crave approval to heal, and the more you chase either, the less you get both. Fergie learned long ago how to feed the machine. The machine is now feeding on her. What about Beatrice and Eugenie? They didn't choose any of this, but they are living inside its consequences. Public sympathy skews toward them for a reason. They've built quieter lives, stable families, smaller headlines. They want their mother well. They want her protected. They want the noise to stop. And that maternal instinct, if anything can cut through denial, it's a daughter telling you it's time to get help, might be the only message that lands. There's also the Andrew problem no one can solve in a soundbite. He is not just an ex-husband. He's the gravitational force that has pulled Sarah's story into his. As he retreats, she's left standing in the foyer, holding a history that won't stop calling. If she stays, she's tethered to a brand beyond repair. If she leaves, she steps into a world that only knows her because of that brand. That's not a choice. That's a trap. Where does a comeback artist go when the audience stops clapping? Maybe the answer is offstage. For someone who's lived a public life at maximum volume, the most radical act is silence. Not sulking silence. Not strategic silence. Healing silence. The kind that lets new habits form, lets real work start, lets trust grow again in places without cameras. That doesn't sell tickets. It builds character. And it's the one thing her critics don't believe she can do. Here's what it would look like if she's serious. First, professional help, not a headline about wellness, but day in, day out therapy and structure. Second, a clean break from the temptations that keep resetting the cycle. Quick cash interviews, performance apologies, transactional friendships. Third, accountability that doesn't ask for applause. Acknowledge the harm. Name the lapses. Stop litigating the past in the press. Start changing the future in private. Will that fix the reputation? Not soon. Maybe not ever. Some audiences don't forgive on timelines we like. Some brands stay stained. But the point of real accountability isn't applause. It's dignity. And dignity is something you build for yourself when the world decides to withhold it. There's one more uncomfortable truth. The reason Fergie's story still commands attention is the same reason it keeps crashing. She is unfiltered in a world that requires filters. She is impulsive in a system that rewards restraint. She is deeply, visibly human in a monarchy that demands the opposite. That's why people loved her. That's why people judge her. And that's why this collapse hurts to watch. It feels like the end of a myth we wanted to believe. That charm beats consequence, that warmth outlasts scandal, that resilience is just reinvention with good lighting. Resilience isn't that. Resilience is what you do after the cameras are packed away. It's the 6 a.m. decision not to pick up your phone. It's the apology you make privately that never leaks because it wasn't meant to be a headline. It's accepting that some doors stay closed and walking toward the ones you can build yourself.